We're back in the woods today to talk about the occult history of Finland and Finnish sorcery. Now before I get to that, I want to describe the difference between sorcery and magic. Well, this is probably my arbitrary understanding, but it's basically, the difference between magic and sorcery is in a kind of a, as I said, an arbitrarial sense. I would say that magic is any kind of supernatural occult system derived from the Kabbalah. Therefore, anything that suggests a relationship back towards the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism and magic. Now, that's not necessarily Middle Eastern, unlike their religions, and I'll tell you why. The majority of the Kabbalah was actually developed by Ashkenazim Jews in the Pale of Settlement, Russia, Poland, and even down as far into the Caucasus. So ostensibly it's still a European style of magic, although there are some roots in Israel. The majority of the work was done, and the majority of that canon or that lineage of magic was done in Eastern Europe. So it's generally not, it can't be really described as Abrahamic in the literal sense, in that its origins were not from the Middle East. Now, its development, it's the same reason the Star of David is not really Jewish as such. That was also developed in the Jewish Pale of Settlement by Ashkenazim Jews in the late 1870s. So that's perfect. That's essentially a European magical sign as well. It's also used in Indo-European traditions, so it's completely compatible. It's not like Abrahamic religions that developed in the desert and exclusively remained in the desert and never changed. That's the difference between paganism and the Abrahamic religions, is that paganism, it can change. It can invent new gods and goddesses. It can amalgamate existing gods and goddesses, and it can actually invent or even make a god or a goddess defunct, or it can adapt the god or a goddess. So that's the difference in paganism. It's more flexible and it moves with the times. Sorcery, on the other hand, is more like a folk magic tradition that is indicative with an area. So therefore, I'll give you an example. If you were talking about the magic of the cunning men, the occult tradition, low-flying aircraft, the occult tradition of the cunning men of London, their magic was very much rooted in the Kabbalah. So they would be magic. Though if you were to go into the north of England and find remnants of people still using Anglo-Saxon occult, excuse me, Anglo-Saxon occult, that would be sorcery, because it's just like Irish magic. Irish occult would be sorcery. Celtic-Iberian would be sorcery. If it's not rooted in the Kabbalah, if it's rooted in Kabbalah, it's magic. If it's not rooted in the Kabbalah, it's sorcery. And it also comes with a connotation. The term sorcery has a strength to it that magic doesn't, mainly because it hasn't been watered down through things like stage magic and perceptions like that, and Harry Potter and other things like that. Now back to the Finnish thing. Finnish magic, why does it matter? Well, the Finns are a fascinating people. They're not liked by the rest of the Scandinavians. They're considered kind of dark and morose, and the Russians don't like them either. The two countries that have been at war forever. Now, there's real reason for this. Now, you get to know Finnish people. They're actually pretty cool. It's just that they're probably closer to pagans than most of us. Now, there were three crusades launched by the three Swedish crusades that were launched into the Baltic, the eastern Baltic area, to eliminate, through genocide or forced conversions, the last of the Baltic pagan peoples. This was still going on until about the late 1400s, so paganism held out in Finland and the Baltic for a long time, and particularly among the Keralians. Now, the Keralians are an ethnic group that live and still exist between what is the present day Russia and also Finland, on the border areas. So they're in both countries at the moment. There's always been a fluctuation in those borders. Now, when the Christians had a very difficult time converting the Keralians to Christianity, and they developed the double faith thing that many Slavic people developed, and also Celtic-Iberians, where they kept their pagan beliefs under the surface while pretending to be Christians. Now, just as soon as people in Europe had converted to Christianity and had realised it doesn't work, it's no use, rosary beads don't work, and prayer doesn't work, you need actual real help, they turned to Finnish witches. Now, Finnish witches were held in extremely high esteem across a vast area of Northern Europe, stretching from the Gulf of Finland all the way to the North Sea in northern Germany and Holland. Now, they were known for certain kinds of magic. One was the use of ropes. Now, ropes and knots. Now, what the ropes and the knots and gave them power was that these ropes were used, that there were ropes that were used to hang or strangle people. And it was believed that the energy was transferred into the rope. We found that with the bog bodies in Ireland and Denmark and Germany and around Europe, they're often strangled as well as having their throats cut. And this is because the rope had a magical thing. This is where the expression money for old rope comes from. Even as far as like the Victorian times, and maybe even to the 20th century, in England, people would lobby to buy, hangmen were paid in rope, and they would cut the rope into segments and sell them to people who believed that the sections of rope had magical powers, which they probably do, because they're like almost like conduits or wires. And so the Finns sold this. That's where they got a dark reputation from. They traded in the something that was used to hang people, and the Christians would look down on them while they were drinking the body and blood of Christ. Anyway, and another thing too was they had minerals or mineraloids such as Shungite. This is Shungite here. It only grows, or it only exists in Karelia on the Russian-Finnish border, and this is an incredibly powerful mineral. My friend JP in Scotland, who runs Ever Beyond Radio, we had a recent talk about this. He introduced me to this, and it's added so much to my own craft as from years and years of using white quartz crystal exclusively. I didn't think there was any great use in other crystals, but I have to say I've been totally converted to Shungite. Now, Shungite is its molecular structure actually traps energy, and it can be released. I've actually developed, well, I've kind of reinvented some Finnish traditions, which in next book we'll talk about, on how you can actually do sorcery using Shungite. And so that's it. So Finland has retained this sense of the mystique and this sense of wariness among the other Scandinavians, because the Christian Scandinavians, particularly the Swedes, had to try and exterminate them or change them into Christians on those 3 Swedish Crusades. They never fully did it, just like the Sami people of northern Scandinavia, and the Finns retained a magical tradition, particularly the Keralians and some of the other Baltic tribes, and that's why Finnish magic is so important. The Finnish witches played an enormous part in keeping paganism alive, because we know the Christians destroyed all our ancestors' books, documents and libraries. And so this video is as much a tribute to the occult and the sorcery and the witches of Finland as information on them. So thank you, Witches of Finland.